Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Neo Tokyo Interlinked. Huge shout out to our sponsor, Playa3ull Games. They are inspired by gamers and funded by their community. They have a epic game on the Epic Games Store, a third-person shooter called Nexus. Hop on in there and check that out. They're also currently selling nodes, so if you're interested, check that out at their website, playable.games. That is a 3 instead of a B on Playable. Now strap in for the rest of this episode of Interlinked. We will be diving into some topics that me and Ben have been interested in lately. Ben, absolute pleasure to be co-hosting with you today. How are you doing, brother?
Good, sir. It's always a beautiful day when I get to co-host alongside the greatest co-host of all time, the main man from NT Plays, the airdrop wizard, you yourself, Mr. Cryptoetheus.
Dude, your intros always make me blush. LeBoomington, if you can edit out my blushing with your skills, that'd be much appreciated. And actually, I do have to make one correction. We do new have a new lead for NT Plays, Dylan DeVillain. So big shout out to Dylan. He came over from the NXG crew. The NXG crew and NT Plays have been partnering. So we had, Dylan DeVillain and Dr. Kepper doing a lot of the hosting there. I would chime in as well from time to time. But now we got Dylan leading the NT Plays initiative. We've got some absolutely crazy partnerships that I'm just going to tease here for this next quarter of NT Plays that I think you guys are going to be really, really excited about. I know Ben knows at least of one of those. So if you want to take that as a hint, do your own analysis. But the first thing I wanted to dive into today is you sent me a link that left me gut punched and quite honestly crying in my kitchen a little bit. So we thought it was impactful enough to share with the audience. So would love for you to kick us off with that, brother.
Boom. Okay, let's do it. And I just want to preface it by saying that we talk a lot about crypto, we talk a lot about markets, we talk a lot about business. Sometimes, especially in the beginning of a new year, I think it could be good to like reflect on things. So I would just encourage everybody to like, if you haven't already, maybe reflect on the last year and, think about things. And I always like to think about it like month by month, like what were the highlights of the month, things I was grateful for, things I could have done better, things like that. And if you go check your calendar, often it will remind you of the things that you've done. So as part of that, I was going through and I realized that I was kind of slacking on my reading game. And I did a lot of like audio, like podcasts, audiobooks, YouTube stuff just to stay up to date on things. But like I missed the reading. The reading is a big thing. So started to read, started to go through like different apps to help with reading, like grab RSS feeds from different places, follow some smart people, and just get my reading game back on. And through that process, I discovered this article by Tim Urban. I have no idea who this person is, to tell you the truth, but he has like the king with the sword on X, and occasionally like Elon will retweet him and stuff. So, I was like, okay, great. Well, at least there's some semblance of somebody vouching for this person. But either way, the message is the message. Sometimes I think you can ignore the messenger. But I thought it was really powerful. So let's jump into it. Can you just let me know if you can see the screen?
I am muted. We are good to go.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, it's called the tail end. And basically, um, we're making an assumption that the human life is 90 years. Now, that's a generous assumption. Most people don't live to that. The average is, I think, in the 70s, high 70s for females, low 70s for males. Maybe we should question our choices as males so we can up that. But anyways, so you can you can lay it out visually with things like this. So it's like you have the years, you have the months, and then you have the weeks, and you obviously have the days. Um, but the interesting thing is like if you start to count things based on that, you know, how many more of the various important things or even non-important things, like seemingly trivial things you have. Like, for example, how many winters do you have left? Well, if this guy's 30, so about a third finished with his life, that's a lot of X's. Like that's a lot of things that have been consumed, meaning the amount of time that's been consumed. And like Super Bowls, kind of the same thing. How many times do you go in the ocean every year? How many times how many books do you get to read? That one was big for me because I love to read and I love to like learn. And I'm like, oh shit, there are a limited number of things that I will get to read in my life. And most of the vastness of human knowledge and intelligence, I will never fucking know because there's just not enough time. I mean, hopefully we figure some shit out and we can, stop aging and longevity and all that stuff. But assuming that does not happen, like we have a certain number of books we can read, we have a certain number of podcasts we can listen to, of things, things like that. And he goes on to, talk about the number of presidents left, the number of times you get to eat certain foods. This one I think was like dumplings or something. So he's like, all right, at least I got a fuck ton of dumplings left. So, you know. um, but then what really hit was this part about relationships. And this one just kind of hit it home for me pretty pretty hard, which
Here's where the tears
was,
started to flow.
yeah, like if your parents are in their mid 60s or maybe 70s or whatever, like we spend most of our time with our parents when we're young, if we're lucky, if we're lucky and we got to do that. But the majority of that time was spent when you lived under their roof and you saw them every day. So depending on how many times you see them now per year and how many days per year, you may be in the last 10% or 20% of your time with your parents. Apply that to, different people in your lives. Like that's a very short amount of time that you have left, right? I don't know if did I kind of go over that properly? Like if you spent every day with your parents until you were 18 and then now you spend like a couple days a year, the majority of the time that you will ever be able to spend with your parents is already behind you and you only have a tiny fraction of a percent left.
Yeah, and scroll down to maybe finish that graphic so because it really drives it home. Like those are all, where he's scrolling right now, that's his childhood, that's our childhoods, and that's
Mhm.
what potentially you have left, especially for many people, like myself. I'm fortunate that I get to see my family quite often. But if you live far geographically from your parents, like, and don't see them as much, this could be even smaller. And, this could also be with, best friends that you had growing up that you don't get to connect with. So, no, I think you explained it well. And this graphic really drives it home and I think I had been first exposed to this by Jordan Peterson in one of his books where he went into some of this like really heavy math that you can do. But yeah, I mean, this is super, super powerful and really got me reflecting on, okay, I mean, a big influence is how close do you live to the people and the things that you love? Because that's going to dictate how many of those events you have left. Again, assuming you're lucky.
Totally. Yeah, like where yeah, I'm lucky enough to still, live in the same place as my mom. So that's like a natural uh help in being able to like create more time, more opportunities to be with them. But anyways, like to me, it was just very, very impactful. And even here, kind of some of the takeaways were like living in the same place as the people you love totally matters, priorities matter, and quality time matters. And something that really just brought home for me was like, I, I can't afford to waste time. None of us can afford to waste our time. And like there are so many things in modern day society that is trying to capture our time and exploit our time, not for our benefit, but for its benefit. And to me, that's insidious. Like the news is trying to fucking scare us because it needs to get us to watch it so that it can get more revenue. That most of the time it's not really helping us out. It's just trying to like trigger the fight or flight and the dopamine and all that kind of stuff in our brain. Like That is just insidious. Social media, it's absolutely trying to capture our attention and maximize the time that we spend on the platform. That is insidious. That removes the opportunity. Not only does it consume these, the squares above where it's talking about the days and like the time that you have, but it will reduce the number of chances that you have to be able to spend with the other people. Like you may get X's on this chart without actually having spent that time, right? For a couple of reasons. One, the time could just be consumed and then you just lose out on the time. But two, because you lose out on the time doing that, you may lose out on time that you could have been spending being productive, which would give you the resources and the freedoms to be able to go and have that time. And then three, when you get there, you may be so addicted, like, so addicted to your phone. Like I'm addicted to my phone. I'm mostly talking about myself, like addicted to your phone or social media or whatever, that when you're in the same space as them, you can't even have that quality time because you're sitting there looking at the phone like a fucking
Hmm.
cyborg, just addict. So yeah, all that just hit so hard. And that's why I forwarded it to you because I was like, fuck, more people have to read this. I mean, it's like it's a fight for our quality of life, I think is what it really is.
No, no doubt. And I certainly also had the takeaway. I definitely had the takeaways that you were describing there. But an additional one is like one of the one of the largest like chunks of our time in our working years is spent with the people that we work with. Now, that used to be even more extreme in the work from the office, like extreme meta, where the people that you are surrounded with, like, aren't even necessarily people that you have mutual interest with. Like when at my time at VMware, like it was the only thing that we had in common is that we were working at this company together. Now, of course, you find friends there. I found friends there at that like particular spot, but really one of the big takeaways is I'm so grateful that we get to spend so much time working together, even though we're, digitally isolated from each other or geographically isolated from each other, forgive me. But really, it makes a difference if you like the people that you work with. Now, sometimes that can be you actually like them and would be like friends with them. Sometimes that's with like you guys are pursuing like a mutual goal. And so it's like seen as like beneficial. But like life is too short unless you're forced to by like your situation to work with people that you don't like, to work for bosses that you don't like. If you're not getting something concrete out of that, like there's so much opportunity out there, particularly if you have spent some of these times crossing off X's in skill development, that you really should be pretty choosy about. And I think like there's this trap where companies don't owe anyone a career. And so there particular is this sort of like legacy hangover from the days of people spending their entire career at one company, where I hear it all the time where they're like, I hate this job. I hate what I'm doing. I know I don't want to do this, but because of some archetypal thing that some college professor told me or my parents told me, I can't leave this company before 2 years because then it doesn't look good on my resume. And people will just chip off 2 years of their life where, again, this is all best case scenario. We have all of these marks on the board. Like tomorrow is never guaranteed, certainly with all the craziness going on in the world, and that's just life. So you really, I found this as a big focusing factor of like, if you're not doing what you are enjoying, like you need to be okay being selfish with your time.
100%. 100%. And I don't want to I don't want to try to come off as being like anti-work either because I actually love doing the work and like, this kind of feels like play, but technically we're working. Like, we're doing the thing. And again, I'm super grateful for being able to work with you, of course. Um, I don't think it needs to be an anti-work thing at all. In fact, I think a lot of us, especially in crypto, we express ourselves through business. I mean, it's just a function of like, reaching your full potential and being able to like exercise your skills and develop skills and chase passions and, be creative in different ways. Some people want to, do woodworking and make a bench. Other people want to write a book. Other people want to do deals. Other people want to run a company. Whatever that is, you know, that it's all good. It's all good, whatever that is. From my opinion, it's all good as long as it's something that you actually want to be doing. So I totally agree with you on that one. And it's I think we're at a point in life where it's like as long as you're willing to put in the work and develop the skills, you really can do whatever you want to do. Like we're not in the feudal system of the 1300s where you were born a serf, you will always be a serf. You're working on the fucking fields for the king and you have zero opportunity to do anything. Like we have the internet today. We have if you were lucky enough to live in America, like you have so many safety nets and so many things that you can fall back on. Like you're not gonna die. That's not gonna happen. In other countries, I don't really know. I'm sure, yes, you could die. But in America, like, we got it pretty good. We're very, very lucky. And there's really, in my opinion, no reason to like settle for something. Of course, there are extenuating circumstances, but to the best of your ability, to actually go and do the thing that you want to do. It's just, yeah, it was just a reminder of that. Um, and also I should say, you know, everybody has had tough times or everybody has had to like deal with hard shit. And there have been times where there's been too much month at the end of the money, for me. I've been there. I totally get it. It's like sometimes you got to be scrappy and you got to figure that shit out. It sucks, but you can get through that. And this too shall pass. And it's like the things that you're going to be good enough at to be able to develop the income or get the resources you need to not have to be in that place of, you know, getting defeated by life, which I've been there, like the, there's always a way. In my opinion, there's always a way, and you gotta just figure it out because otherwise you're gonna kind of be a slave to the system the whole time, and you're gonna hate it. You're gonna live with regret, and that to me is just horrible because you're gonna miss out on all of the chances to spend the time with the people you want to spend the time with, or go do the things that you want to go do. And in my opinion, doom scrolling on social media is just not fucking worth it. It's not worth it to give up everything that you could have had instead of that.
Totally. And I think there's also like an over rotation that can be the instinct from like charts like this that like really drive home that like it could drive home a real big like carpe diem seize the day kind of thing, which can be both inspirational and be like, well, why wouldn't I do this like bad habit, or why wouldn't I always be getting fucked up with my friends if like, this is my only chance. But sometimes it's also realizing like, hey, even though I hate getting in the ice bath, which I've been slacking on recently. So I certainly have, sympathy for anybody who's not working that into their life. And for some people, it doesn't make sense, but it's a euphemism for, working out, eating right, all these things where, yes, that 3 minutes or 2 minutes that I'm in the ice bath is terrible. And you could easily be like, life's too short to be sitting in a bucket of ice. But at the same time, what that does is the rest of the day, the like 99%, 98% that I'm not in the ice bath is so much better because I spent that, 2 minutes suffering. I think that can apply to working out. It can apply to working hard when you're young so that you don't have to spend your time limited and worrying about bills when you're older. So sometimes it's like realizing, yeah, like, I need to invest this time in the short term and I need to suffer because of the delayed gratification at the end of the rainbow. I think it offers interesting things about, and we were talking about this a bit before we started. When is enough enough? So at some point, if you blow it out of the water in crypto, if you're still having to spend 90% of your time grinding, and you've already hit whatever that number is, call it like 5 million, maybe 10 million, like how much is it worth it going from 10 to 20 or from 25 to 50 or from 50 to 100 if you're really killing it? Like, is that worth consuming you? Is that increased sort of utility of that? Or is there a point where we were discussing the sort of hypothetical example of like, if you're in crypto and you're grinding so that you can get to, enough money to open a surf shop or a jujitsu gym or, whatever, enable whatever your dreams are, it's okay to be like, hey, I've hit this objective and it's time to be able to reprioritize, which I think really drives home why this sort of reflection and thought can be a really good investment to make sure, hey, where am I? And where do I want to be going instead of just trudging one foot in front of the other and not really reflecting?
100%. And I also think it's an important caveat to say like there's totally nothing wrong with fucking crushing it and becoming a billionaire and like doing all the things. If that's what you actually want to do, right? Like I totally plan to be an investor and a business person for throughout the remainder of my life because business is how I express myself. I love business. I absolutely love it. I love doing the things. But like there are certain parts of business that I don't really enjoy. So at a level which you can delegate that or not do that or find a partner who loves to do that or whatever, you know, that's the magic. That's where I think the magic is. And yeah, knowing that number is like that's a really good thing because then when to for one thing, when to sell. So it's like how do you know when to sell? When's enough? Well, that can be helpful, very helpful to you tactically to know that stuff. Like for example, I have a certain number that I want to get to because I know the sort of monthly income being able to be generated from sticking, your money into T-bills that I would like to have to accomplish the other goals that I want. I know when I'm going to sell. Like I know exactly when I'm going to sell. I know the price targets. I know all that stuff. I'm ready to go, just waiting for that to happen. And then it's like, okay, sweet. That was hit. And then, so on and so forth. But like the I think the thing that you said, which is very wise, is being aware of and specifically being aware of what you want out of your day and out of your life and not just grinding just to grind or grinding just because somebody else said it was the thing you were supposed to do or you got fired up by some rah person online or like that might be fine for them but it might not be the thing for you. There's this old story of this fisherman who was kind of poor in a random island country and but he would fish. He would When he was finished fishing he made just enough to feed his family and a little bit just a little bit more so that he could have a few couple things that he needed, but he was able to spend time with his family, had enough to eat, he enjoyed fishing, so on and so forth. And this wealthy man who had retired at a very old age came and started talking to this fisherman and was like, hey, I see you out here, I just retired, I see you out here, why don't you fish more? And the guy's like, well, I have everything I need. And he's like, well, if you fish more, then eventually you could buy a boat. And then you could increase your output of fishing. And then if you really, work at it diligently for another 5, 10 years, then you can get multiple boats. And then you can build a fleet. And then you can build a company and you can build a corporation. And then you can do all the stuff. And 30 years later, you could retire just like me and do what it is that you want to do. And the fisherman was like, I already do that. How's that going to help me? So it was, I think I'm kind of saying the same thing again and again, but hopefully that kind of hits the point home there.
Now, a word from our sponsors.
What's up, crypto gamers? Shout out to our sponsor, Myria. Myria is revolutionizing Ethereum based gaming with its powerful L2 scaling solution. Think zero gas fees, instant transactions, free NFT minting, and more. Myria offers a suite of tools that are tailor-built for game development, including game-specific SDKs, a spec'd-out marketplace, Web3 spiked leaderboards, new AI super tools, and more. All this fueled by a fleet of player-run nodes that are a breeze to operate and pump out daily rewards for supporting the ecosystem. Plus, check out Meta Rush, the Battle Royale obstacle runner by Myria Studios, dropping very, very soon.
Now back to your regularly scheduled program.
No, I think it's a good, parable for, if your love is fishing at the end of the day and you get to the point where you can fish or you're already fishing, then it's okay to just do what you love and keep on fishing. Um, on that topic, I'd be curious. I'll share mine just in case you hadn't had a chance to think about it. But what activities that maybe you want to more prioritize based upon sort of the limitation here? One of the ones that really like triggered some thinking for me is like one of the things that makes me the most happy is doing martial arts. And that's even a lower or a shorter runway because you can do martial arts your whole life, but really for jujitsu competitively or for Muay Thai or a lot of these like disciplines, like you really have a tiny window of your youth where you can really compete at a high level with the big dogs, with the young bloods, really tip of the spear and enjoy that. And that might only be, if you're lucky, till 45. Now, part of that is, maybe I don't eat a pint of ice cream like I did last night after dinner. And because, that'll make you feel terrible and shorten that runway on the back end. But I don't know, it really made me think of like, okay, I probably, if I'm lucky, have till 45 to really put my foot on the gas and be able to compete at a high level. Do I prioritize that more in the short end? And what sort of parts of my life am I not getting good leverage on? So there's certain activities that you're working on that you get really good leverage, which is going to provide you some great options down the line, might pay really well. And then maybe there's some activities that are legacy activities where you're not getting good leverage, where there's not as much of a good runway where it's going to be able to help you accomplish your goals down the line.
Well, so what was your conclusion? How did you, what was kind of the result of the thinking along those lines?
Was having to prioritize sort of like martial arts over like less productive activities, being selfish with my time from like a working front, not, I naturally tend to be like a people pleaser. It comes from like a place of insecurity. And so I have to be really guarded on just saying yes because of what I think the optics are, or for like not letting people down and realizing, hey, in some activities you provided a service and it's okay to discontinue that to reprioritize for other things. So, I've been good at prioritizing like martial arts. It's definitely something that I'm going to continue to do. And that's the other big takeaway for me was like, hey, it might be time for me to stop being a man with a foot in two canoes and constantly going back and forth between Denver and the East Coast, where if I settle in either one, it might not be the most optimal as far as like, I'm not at the exact gym that I want to be, but I'm also not spending those days flying, not spending those days traveling, not having the like rundown effect of that. And I can, while it might not be the most optimal, I can dig in at the gym that I'm geographically near, spend more time with the family. So I'm still in the processing phase of it. So like the conclusions are a little wishy-washy, but certainly have some greater clarity than I did going in, now that I've been doing a little bit of reflection.
Well, I think the Ray Dalio um, principle of pain plus reflection equals progress is sort of kicking into effect. Perhaps the article caused a bit of the pain, you
Hmm.
know, but the reflection will lead to the progress. So, I'm curious to know where it all shakes out for you on that one. But I think that's a great point of like very soberly or very realistically thinking about the trade-offs and the options. And hey, there's this option, there's that option. That this one has these pros and cons, this one has these pros and cons. And unfortunately, because we have limited time and resources, scarcity, right? We have to choose. We have to make trade-offs. And sometimes I don't think we can have it all. We can get as close as we possibly, can, but like in one place there may be the best gym, but no family. In the other place there may be the family, but not the best gym. And it's like, fuck, how do you do both and then not waste the time when traveling? So yeah, no, that's a conundrum for sure.
Yeah, my grandpa always says, which always sticks with me, is he's like, in this world, you can have anything you want, you just can't have everything you want. So it's really about being able to prioritize to make sure that, you're hitting this stuff and pulling your head out of the weeds and making a look at the forest instead of just the trees, to be able to like sort of have that clarity and that strength to sort of be able to make a decision.
100%. Yeah, and I think also another thing that's pretty inspiring is that you figured out what those things are that you really care about. Like the martial arts, the family, that seems to be, very high up on the priority list. I would bet a lot of people aren't really clear on what is super high up on their priority list. I think I'm probably one of those people. Like I have a lot of things that I love and a lot of things that I want to prioritize, but like if you were to ask me like what is my version of martial arts, I don't even really know. Like I love 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 going outside and being in nature, and even if that means just walking outside of my house and like walking in the neighborhood, which I think is beautiful with a lot of trees and greenery and really cool houses and looking at the architecture and stuff like that, it really doesn't get old, which I'm very grateful for. But like, you know, I love going out there and walking around. And, yesterday I walked for like 8.5 miles for almost 3 hours and popping in an audiobook, giving a few people a call that I haven't talked to in a while, things like that. Like I love that. But I also love playing pickleball and I also love playing basketball. I also like love playing volleyball and doing all that stuff and skiing and all those things. So I think it's inspirational that you have identified that thing and now you're going after it, because I think a lot of people haven't.
And I think one thing that I think helps add a lot of clarity, and I think I can't remember what book I got this from, so I wish I could give credit where it's due, but also just reconnecting with the child version of you. I think we got so much programming from our parents, from education. We sort of talked about that sort of like stigma around only staying at a job for an X period of time. I think that's something that we were programmed. That's not like innate in us. So one thing that I've been sort of reflecting on is what were all these things that got me fired up before all that programming went in? What was I actually passionate about? I was the little kid who would stop people on the street to talk to them while I'm walking with my mom just to tell them about dinosaurs. So I don't know necessarily where that connects in my regular life, but the other one where I've been drawing some insights from is I was a Dragon Ball Z kid. And now watching like One Piece, which, I picked up some manga for and I'm now watching the anime when I was in Japan, that I'm like, oh, this like resonates with me on a deep level, like Zoro's pursuit to be the best swordsman, like Luffy's pursuit to be the best pirate, Goku's pursuit to be like the greatest martial artist, and like trying all of these sort of like challenges and going up against like bigger and bigger foes. Like that deeply resonates with me on like even as I was with a child. So sort of that leads to like the martial arts. And so I think there's a lot of gold nuggets from like mining your past and like sitting and stewing on that reflection that can offer, some powerful insights.
Well, then I need to get back out my red Power Ranger suit, because
Yes.
every single day coming home from school, I would put that on every single day. And then pretending to fight off monsters with swords and stuff, you know, and then also pretending to have Dragon Ball Z powers, basically fighting bad guys. That was a very, I'm thinking about that. That was a very recurring theme. Hmm.
Yeah, and like what made, Power Rangers, like what makes that show unique that could have resonated so much? What was unique about the red Power Ranger as opposed to like, the white Power Ranger, the black Power Ranger, blue, or I'm gonna stop guessing colors before I guess one that's wrong. But there's can be some insights there. The Power Rangers had such a strong team aspect compared to like other shows. So maybe it's like, a love of putting together or operating with like a super skilled team. I'm just sort of like throwing spaghetti at the wall, but there could be some interesting things there to like see why the Red Power Ranger resonated and why Power Rangers in general resonated.
100%. And hopefully, like, for the folks listening and watching, hopefully like you guys and gals can extrapolate from this, what's your own red Power Ranger suit? What's your own, Dragon Ball Z? What's your own martial arts? What's your own, versions of that? Because that's hopefully where you'll find some clarity and some happiness there. Because again, the article that I realized I've been still sharing this whole time, I should probably stop that. The article, you know, it really makes you think. And it really kind of hits home of like, we really do only have this certain amount of time left. And let's make it the most that it can possibly be. And I also think like it does sometimes it's okay to not have a huge number of experiences with a thing and still be able to derive a tremendous amount of joy from that. Like, for example, every year I go skiing and, you know, I'm grateful enough to be able to invite some homies and, some top tier Giga Chad homies join me on a ski trip every year. And like, it's a once a year sort of thing. But, done over the number of lifetimes, there may only be 30, 40 more years of that if I'm lucky. And but that's okay. Like that kicks ass. Doing that one big trip a year, like that's fucking awesome. I think so. And it's like it's okay that there's not that many, but making each one of them count, like you don't need to like 10x the number of trips unless you love skiing that much. So I also think there's that too of like knowing that sometimes it's okay to not do something a bajillion, like not spam it, but still be able to enjoy it when it does happen, sort of thing. And yeah, I think probably travel would hit a bucket for a lot of people, but like one big trip a year, that's cool. Like I think you could still scratch that itch with one trip a year. You know what I mean?
Totally. And I think like to drive it back home to like sort of like crypto, which, is probably the thing we have the most in common with our audience, is do some soul searching and figure out like why are you in crypto? Like on some level, some of people are in here like almost purely for the tech. Like some people are in there for the leverage that it can give to be able to jump socioeconomic classes. Like, but definitely some reflection of like, okay, why am I here? What's the goal? Because we focus so much on like, when is the right time to sell for the market? When's the right time to sell for this token? When do I maximize the amount of like value? How do I like sort of put in techniques so that I realize that I can't maximize and sell the top and that I can, collect as much of the profits that's feasible using the system? But really like figure out, hey, is there a number for this cycle that's you think is somewhat realistic? And of course, you got to keep the market in. And if there's some, crazy signals that look like this party's over, like might not be a good idea to ignore those. But if the party just keeps going and going, it's eventually we're going to get a pullback. We're going to get sort of, the bearish part of the cycle. So when is enough enough? When is it okay to, either take the majority or all of your chips off the table and be like, okay, well, I won. How do you set the winning objectives? Or you're just going to keep playing and you're never going to really realize, if you won until maybe you play for too long and you lose.
Totally. I think perhaps an important concept is the idea of finite and infinite games. A finite game is something like a basketball game or a football game or a football soccer game. One of the things there is it's a clearly defined start and end with clear win parameters. But something like an infinite game is something like business. When did it start? Fuck if I know. The beginning of time. When's it going to end? Probably never. What are the win conditions? I don't know. Is it to become the wealthiest person on the face of the planet? Okay. For how long? Through what measurement stick? Is it inflation adjusted? Is it, nominal? Is it real? Is it, for now? Is it so there's so many different things there, variables there. The only way that you can win an infinite game is to continue playing. So for crypto, I think it's for a lot of people, for those trying to like, multiply their net worths and then keep it, which is the critical part, because it's not real until you sell. I hate to tell you guys, but it's not real until you sell. As we've seen in the last, couple of weeks at the beginning of 2025, you probably saw your net worth cut in half. That fucking sucks to see. but it wasn't real when it went up. It's not real when it goes down. Like, it's only real if you sell, right? Um, but so you could look at it as a finite game of, okay, we have a 4-year cycle historically. Let's play it that way, or an infinite game of like, okay, I just want to keep building my account or whatever. But like trying to frame it in your mind, I think would be very helpful. Like personally for me, I'm playing a finite game this cycle. Like I know my win conditions, I know my parameters, I know when the like I would say Q4 of 2025 is the absolute latest that I'm going to hold. Like even if I'm not at the win condition that I previously set, I will hit my too scared to continue condition and I will sell the fuck out and get out of the market. Even if I'm wrong, whatever. I just got to take the chips off the table at that point. So like I definitely think that's important because other people are like, okay, this is a long-term giga macro trend and I'm going to ride this out until 2070 or something. In which case you have just a different set of win conditions and different parameters, and you're going to make different allocation decisions and so on and so forth. So hopefully people have thought that through over the last couple of years as they've been building positions or doing whatever they've been doing. But I do think that's very useful of a frame.
And for those who haven't had like a chance to reflect, I think we hit upon some, at least what I viewed as thought-provoking topics, thought-provoking ideas, certainly learning more from how you're framing this sort of like problem to yourself. So, we usually these episodes run about an hour. We're close to like 45 minutes. So, for those loyal listeners who are expecting an hour, maybe take 15 minutes and like spend some time reflecting to see, hey, why are you in crypto? Why are you like setting these goals? Have you even set a goal for what you're looking for from even just the most simple of a portfolio? So, I'll wrap up there. Ben, anything you want to leave the audience on with before we wrap?
Yes, I do want to say something. Think about for a second the core thesis of let's take crypto gaming for a second. I think it is very clear that humanity is moving to becoming more of a digital species, or let's call it a digitally integrated species over time. We spend more and more time online. We spend more and more time with, on computers, on screens. So let's use screen time as a proxy for how much time we spend in virtual worlds. It's going up. It's going up, people, and it is not going to go down. That's never going to happen. It's a one-way street. Wherever attention goes, money flows. And so as we spend more time in virtual worlds, we're going to spend more of our money in virtual worlds. There are literally people today, I would say born in 2000 and later, that have not ever been alive and conscious without the internet. They are internet native creatures. That will only continue because they're going to pass that down to their kids and their kids and their kids and their kids. And barring some sort of nuclear fallout or human level extinction or whatever, humanity is going to continue to become more virtually integrated over time. Okay. In that world, meaning in our world that we live in now, or that we think we live in, if it's not a simulation, whatever, that's a different topic.
Either way, we're living in it.
Yeah. Either way, we're living in it. Being able to see that trend and understand that and just grasp that one thing, humanity is going more digital. And we're going to play in virtual worlds. And where attention goes, money flows. There's a lot of capital that's going to exist in virtual worlds. That one thing can be a thesis to bet on as an investor or even somebody working with their time or whatever, or building a business, whatever. Let's just take it from the investor standpoint. You can bet on that trend forever after. That's the one big trend. If you ride that wave, and you're good at what you do, you should be fine. You make good decisions. Okay. However, everybody is kind of figuring that out, and it's a very seductive vision and dream. And so there's going to be a lot of people putting a lot of capital. And as we saw in the 2001 internet bubble, there's going to be a lot of things that don't make it. that a lot of things are going to like boom and bust. There's going to be huge bubbles along the way. So as you're thinking about this, perhaps part of your reflections are, okay, I know everybody's going to do these things. I know these things are becoming more important. AI is becoming more important. Gaming, is a critical part of that, because gaming is like the virtual worlds are gaming. Those two are kind of colliding and coming together and everything. So there's opportunity there and there's a lot of danger there. And learning how to navigate that world that we are in now is probably one of the highest output or highest leverage skills or mindsets or frameworks that you can develop in your lifetime. So hopefully, if you're, maybe you're afloat and you don't know what you want to focus on, maybe that can be something that you can focus on, or that as a macro trend, you can think about and be like, okay, that makes sense to me as a macro trend. What other macro trends am I more interested in? Maybe you're interested in that. Maybe you're interested in other things. But I think finding a trend, figuring something out, having an insight that it doesn't matter if the whole world also knows that. That's fine. Can you play the game better than the other people within that insight? But I think looking at where the tailwinds, like where do you have the wind behind your back? What's going to push you, right? Amazon was built because Jeff Bezos saw the internet was growing at 1,000% per year and was like, I want to build a business that's going to ride that wave. What waves can you ride this year? How can you attach what you want to have, what you want to accomplish with some waves that are already bubbling? And, AI is a good one. Healthcare is a good one. Gaming is a good one. Technology is a good one. These things are always going to be there. They're critical to humanity. So anyways, I don't know if that's helpful, but I do think sometimes it's good to like step back, scope out, refocus on like, whoa, this is going to be a huge opportunity. We've been seeing digital transformation since like the 50s and onward, since they built the computer, the Turing machine, so on and so forth. We're in the very early stages still of all of this stuff. So, you haven't missed the boat. Take a deep breath, lock in. This could be one of the greatest years of your life. And it might take a little reflection and hard work and stuff to get there. But on the other side is the freedom, the significance that you get from developing a skill, from trying something, from failing and trying again and having it work and building something of yourself. And so I wish you the very best, listeners and mighty co-host of mine. I wish you all the best 2025 of all time, and let this be the greatest year of our lives.
Hell yeah. Wonderful way to wrap up. If this episode did not resonate with you and you want us just to go back to talking about regular topics, slam that dislike button. If you like reflection, if this inspired some thinking, hit that like button, drop some comments on some feedback and maybe on what you're reflecting on and what some of the goals are. And we'll be back next week with another episode. Thanks, Ben. Thank you all.